I did not like all the parts of this book, but I think I still loved it. Welcome to Surviving in Books, where life is nuts, so let's escape into great reads. I just finished All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker. And I am here on my couch where I normally do a lot of my reading on my days off. And then more times than not, when I finish, I just lay back and I stare up at the ceiling because all of my thoughts and feelings are running through my head and I want to share them. I want to share them with somebody. So that's what I'm doing. I am starting a new series called Couch Chats, and we're just going to talk about all the things going through my head. It's not planned, it's not written down. These are just my raw reactions and emotions after I finish a book. This book right here. Is it possible to not love all the aspects of a book, but still be completely moved and destroyed and haunted? And then take those all together and then decide that you loved it. Because that is what I'm feeling right now. And I'm going to explain to you why. But first, let's talk about what this book is about. There's two teenagers, Patch and Saint. They're both sort of outcasts. Patch has one eye, that's why he's called Patch. He's from a not great home. His father is not there. His mother, she can't keep a job. She's an alcoholic. She does love him, but she's just a terrible mom. Saint, being raised by her grandmother because her parents are out of the picture, she's also weird, and she raises bees towards the beginning of this. And the two of them connect over the bees, and then they become unlikely odd friends. Then Patch tries to stop someone from hurting Misty, one of their classmates, or kidnapping her. He's not sure. He just sees her in a difficult situation. He gets stabbed in the belly and kidnapped, and Misty runs off. So this story is about Misty, Patch, and Saint, and how their lives are completely changed from that day and how they overcome it or don't overcome it. I think that's the best I can do for a spoiler-free deal. So it's got thriller, it's got crime, suspense, emotional damage, friendship, love, all of those things together in one story. And it is the writing is great in that technically the words on the page are well done. Like, this is someone who knows how to use his words. Now, my issues, pacing, pacing. Some of this, especially towards the middle, dragged and dragged and dragged, and I don't think we needed all of it. I think it could have been summarized. And because of how emotional and heartbreaking it is, the dragging of it felt like torture at times. Like we were wearing a path in the ground of routine that was uncomfortable and sad to read. So hopefully that makes sense. That is my spoiler-free thoughts about this, but I want to dive into basically what happens, kind of like going through the plot summary and how I felt about it with spoilers. So if you have not read this, please pause and come back and talk with me about it after you've read it. I do recommend it. I don't know if I've said that. I do recommend reading this book. Despite the issues that I had with it, I think I still kind of love it. So I recommend it. I actually am going to give this one of the top tiers of my scale for rating books, and this changed me, because I do think that this book is that good. It's confusing. The math doesn't math, but somehow this book changed me. It changed me. Yes, this changed me, and it is one chili pepper. Now, like I said, if you haven't read this, pause and come back. And if you have, then come along with me to the spoiler section. So, spoilers. I want to start by saying that this book has one of the best callbacks that I think I have read all year. Alchemized had quite a few of them. and they were good, but this one brought tears to my eyes. And what am I talking about? The purple honey. I am like, my eyes are filling with water already about this purple honey callback. Let's start at the beginning. The very beginning of the story is Patch's abduction. He is trying to save Misty. He gets stabbed in the belly. He gets taken. Saint is distraught, his friend. It's like the two of them against the world up to this point, and she will not rest until she figures out what happened to him. And it is a unhealthy level obsession that she has to figuring out what happened. But if she hadn't done it, he wouldn't have been found. So it's necessary, despite the fact that it completely robs her of her childhood. And I think that is the theme. One of the themes of this book is how this one event completely changes everyone in it. And they spend the rest of their lives trying to cope with it. And the trajectory that all of their lives were on is forever changed, and they are all going to end up in a different place now because of it. Anyway, I'm trying to get to the purple honey that I think is very important. So the story starts off with the abduction, and then eventually, I think it's 10 months later, Patch gets found, and it is Saint who does all the hard work to figure out how to find him. He has been kept like in a basement type area with no light for 10 months. And Grace, who's a girl, she comes down and visits him, and she tells him all about all of it. Seems like ramblings at the time, but later they turn out to be important, about places she's been. They do Bible verses, and he paints her, like he takes his hand and he goes over her face, and she would say paint it for me, or he would say paint it for me, and that just means like describe in great detail the thing that you're talking about. And I think that is the reason for All the Colors of the Dark, the title of this, because he was kept in the dark for 10 months and he had to visualize all of these things based on how she's describing it and his hands feeling her face. Saint figures out where he's being kept, and she like accosts the guy that she thinks is responsible. She brings a gun, and the house gets set on fire. She almost gets, hurt herself, but miraculously, this guy Jimmy, who was her friend at the time, she told him where she was going. He told the correct people. They were able to rescue her before something bad happened to her. But Grace and the dude are gone. So they're missing now. And the reason why Saint was so set on figuring out what happened to her friend is because Patch was basically her everything. She had her grandmother, of course, but that's like a different relationship. But Patch was her everything. The two of them connected over these bees that she had, who got stolen. The bees are stolen. And just their misfit, not a part of the world connection. And at one point, she plays piano. She was playing her piano. He was sitting next to her and was talking, and he was saying that his mom lost a job because they said that she was stealing. And then he started crying at the piano. And it was a very sad moment. And then I want to read you what she said. Quote, "There's a place where the bees make purple honey." He listened. "The North Carolina coastal plain, the sand hills. No one knows for sure why they do it, but it's real purple. It glows. It's like proof, Patch. There's magical things out there just waiting on you." He dried his eye on his arm. "Swear it." "I swear to God himself." "Can we go see it one day? Where they make the purple honey," he said. She nodded emphatically. "We absolutely can. It'll be our place." This scene cements, in my opinion, their friendship and their belief that there will be something better in the world for them and that they will face it together. And it, the whole thing of this story is, the worst part for me was Patch obviously is traumatized from this event, But then he spends the entire rest of the book trying to find Grace, the girl that was in the basement. And Saint spends the whole rest of the book with the thoughts of how this is the most important person in her life, but yet she can't be with him. He is unavailable in the way that she needs for a friend to be available. He is so traumatized by this, and he is absolutely certain that Grace exists, and it is his sole mission to find her, that he has no room to be the person that he needs to be for Saint. But she doesn't stop. She becomes a police officer. She becomes the chief police in the city where they live. At some point, she's working with the FBI. She is doing all of these great things because she is still trying to find Grace as well. Patch spends the rest of his life, for the most part, until we get towards the end, searching for her. And in the meantime, discovering all these other missing girls that maybe could be her, maybe not. So his journey is roaming around, chasing leads, hoping it's her, finding out it's not her, and then also learning how to paint. And he paints pictures of these missing girls. And then you also throw in, which I thought was like a little bit weird, Misty, the girl that he rescued at the beginning. She's in love with him. I mean, how could you not be someone who like risked their lives and was stuck in a basement for 10 months because they rescued you? And she just wants them to be together. So during the time where he's still in the city, they're boyfriend and girlfriend. They, even though he's kind of like, I'm a shell of myself, you deserve better, go live your life, like you don't owe me for this, just kind of like, that's his theme throughout the whole thing, is that I am not worth anything to anyone. I am a shell of a person because of what happened to me. I just want to find Grace because I told her I would, and she needs to be found. Everyone else, just please go live your lives. But they love him too much, Misty and Saint. They're all in on him and they can't leave him. Anyway, their boyfriend and girlfriend. She needs to go to college, like to Harvard. Her parents are very rich. The dad pays Patch, says, you have to break up with her. She needs to go to college because she wasn't going to go. Misty was going to stay for him. He does it. They break up. He chases leads. He skips school. He paints. Turns out he's an excellent painter. And then when his mom finally dies, he leaves. And he does odd jobs here and there, making ends meet. And he's always a hard worker. You got to give that to him. And then he starts robbing banks, which was bizarre to me that was added in there. That's another part that I didn't love. Like, why did he have to be a bank robber? But he's like a polite bank robber, and people don't even want to turn him in. He's a very polite bank robber. He eventually gets caught by Saint. She's in charge of hunting him down. And she does, and he tries to run, and she shoots him in the leg, and then he goes to jail, but yet she pleads on his behalf to get his sentence reduced, blah, blah, blah. She ends up being the one to drive him home from the jail. Turns out, at one point during his travels, he ran into Misty, and they were intimate, and she got pregnant, dropped out of school, and now he has a daughter, Charlotte. So when he comes back, he meets his daughter, Charlotte, and now he has to decide if he is going to give up this chase for Grace and be a father. And it is a very difficult choice for him because he doesn't think he is a good father. He doesn't think he's a good person, and Charlotte deserves better, but he doesn't. And there's funny things, like he doesn't know what time she should go to bed. So she says midnight, but he notices that she's tired all the time. So he's like, maybe that's not the best time. She needs bras. He's like, oh. So she asks the grandmother, oh, I totally missed this part. When he comes back and finds out he has a daughter, Misty is sick and she dies. Very Forrest Gumpy, right? Very Forrest Gumpy. So he ends up taking sole custody of Charlotte because that's what Misty wanted. And that is what I was talking about, him trying to be a dad. And now he has to give up his chasing because he would just randomly leave on a lead to try to find somebody. I thought that this whole journey of Patch chasing around all of these leads, talking to people, painting them. He would paint the girls, send it to the family. And this guy, Sammy, who took him under his wing, sort of like an apprenticeship with his painting, like he would make a lot of money for these paintings. These paintings were fantastic. He was in charge of selling them. And I thought all of that was just way too long, way too dragging. And it made me like, come on, like, how much do I have to read about Patch finding yet another person that's not the girl he's looking for? And how much do I have to see Saint listening to the tapes that he would record of the things that Grace said, hoping for clues, and her trying just as hard, and her life just turning to crap because she's so focused on this. She gets married, but her heart's not in it. The marriage turns out to be horrible. She gets pregnant. She thinks that she's gonna, abort the baby. She comes home to tell her husband, Jimmy, that she was going to, but didn't. But he beats her up before she gets it out, and then spreads the word to everyone that she like murdered his baby. She ended up giving it for adoption, and we get to see that later. But during the most of the sort of endish towards this, we think that she did have the abortion. He then later finds himself at the zoo where Jimmy, her ex-husband, is, and punches him in the face, and he falls down, hits his head, and he dies, and he has to go to prison for that. But he escapes from prison. And I'm saying all of this to say, this is the reason why the author made us endure through all of these pages of Patch trying to find Grace and connecting with all these other families. Because that is the way that he escapes from jail, is because of his connections. The guard is someone that was not the guard, someone there was like the sister of one of the girls that he helped actually find, because his paintings, they would sell or they would be on the news, and sometimes girls would get found because of these paintings. But I really think that was the reason why we had to endure all those pages, was so those people can show up later to help him escape. But I could have dealt without it. And that is a part of this book that I did not love, that I say the pacing was an issue, because it was torment. It was torment seeing him go from place to place to place to place, trying to find a missing girl. And by place to place, I mean place to 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 find this missing girl. When he gets jumped at prison before he escapes, he finds out that one of the places that Grace described was this White House, and he painted it, and he actually remodeled his home to look just like it, just based off a picture, and he was like the general contractor for the project, despite not knowing what he was doing. And it was a very frustrating process for everyone involved and to watch. But he ended up doing a complete replica of this house, and they called it the Madhouse. One of the dudes in prison saw a picture of it because the warden happens to have a painting that Patch did of this exact house hanging up in his office. And this prisoner knew of where that house was. So then Patch decides that he's going to escape from prison and he's going to go there. Lo and behold, Grace is still there, and he finds her, and they have this very tender moment. And she says, I begged him not. And so it turns out the guy that like kidnapped her and did all these things, kidnapping all these other girls and leaving these rosary beads, was her father. He had like some messed up religious ideals, and he thought that these girls were sinners or something like that, and he had kept his daughter captive. I don't know if he did any of things to his daughter, but she had been captive this entire time. And we're like, what, Patch is like in his 30s now, maybe 40s. I mean, there's like so much time that happens in this book. And she's like, I begged him not to leave because I knew you would come for me. I knew you would come for me. So the whole time, because at some point we're all wondering if she was even real, because there were no signs of her, just what he had in his mind. She is real. She's still there with her dad. The dad is there. Saint figures out where he's going. She's there. The dad tries to kill Saint, but then Patch gets Saint's gun and shoots the dad in the head, and it's over. And now Grace is free. And in a way, so is Saint, and so is Patch, because his one-track mind that he's been on for the entirety of this book has been resolved. And Saint's has too, because she has been there with him because that's what a ride or die friend does. And I get so emotional about this friendship because she had no life. Her life was crap because her life was just for Patch. And she was getting a friend, like he was a friend. I mean, he punched the guy in the head um, for her, but he was not available. His heart was not available in a way that that Saint deserved, and yet she still kept with it. And in this moment, it seems like it was all for a reason because Grace had been in prison for this entire time, and now she could be free. She allows Patch to run away rather than take him back to prison because he's a fugitive now. And then she and Charlotte don't really hear much from him. And Charlotte's about to start college in 2 weeks, and a bottle of purple honey shows up at their doorstep. This callback had me sobbing. A jar of purple honey, which was from the scene that they had at the piano when he was at his most vulnerable and he was crying, and she cheered him up about purple honey in North Carolina. So Saint and Charlotte, his daughter, go to North Carolina, keep looking around, trying to find him. Finally, they hear about like a pirate or something because he wanted to, when he was a child, he wanted to be a pirate. He was obsessed with pirates because he had the eye patch. They find his boat and they find him and they have a reunion. And on his boat, he has a painting that he drew. And let me tell you what he says about this painting. Saint smiled as she looked at the two figures lying beneath the stars, their heads side by side, their feet the north and south of a compass. The 13-year-old pirate and the beekeeper that saved his life. At one point in this book, she asked, "Why don't you ever paint me?" Because he painted so many different girls that were missing. And he said, "Because you never needed me to." And this is a callback to that too, this final painting. And I was just overwhelmed. And it felt like Saint was finally getting that recognition of the connection between them, although it was always kind of there, but in such a outright form. She was getting that same level that Grace had gotten in all the paintings and all the other girls had gotten in all the paintings, but he said that she didn't need him to be painted. And now I think he's to the point where now he can sit with that and give her that and say, "Hey, this is like a thank you." And I guess the two of them just, I don't know. What do you guys think about this ending? Are they just going to be friends? I assume that that's all that they ever would be because when he came back, he ended up dating Misty and not Saint, despite Saint begging Misty, like, "Can you not? You could have any boy you want. Can you not take him?" And, Misty did anyway because she was just caught up in her survivor's guilt feelings and everything like that. And I I don't know. I think we're supposed to just want the fact that they are just great friends, but I really want them to have a happily ever after together. I mean, he is a fugitive though, and I don't really know how that works. He like lives on a boat, but maybe she visits him regularly and they reminisce and they have a good time sometimes, and now Charlotte can come. But I don't think so. I mean, I do think that they can do that, but I don't think they're going to have like a happily ever after together. I think the story is about a tragic event completely just derailing and ruining life and everyone just doing the best that they can. And at the end of it, that best is still kind of not great. And that's why it haunts me because it's just too real. In the real world, bad stuff happens and we recover, but barely. It's not that common to completely turn it around and be completely fine and like, oh, well, I learned from that, but it's all for the best. Like, no, we carry the scars, the battle wounds, and the life past that point is nowhere near as great as it would have been had that event not happened. And that's why people are like, well, everything that you do, it changes you and it makes you who you are. Yes, I understand that and I get that. But who it changes you to and who you are after is not as happy and great as it would have been had you never have had that horrible thing happen to you. And I mean, that's just being honest. And that's what this is. These kids, Misty, Saint, and Patch, and Grace, are all irrevocably changed for the worst. And it is just what they did with the time that they had on the other side of that and their life, despite the fact that it is a worse life. I do want to mention a couple things that I didn't, and that's the fact that Sammy, the guy who was sort of like a mentor to Patch with his painting, hilarious. Hilarious. Loved him, loved everything that came out of his mouth, loved it. Charlotte is Patch's daughter, is very witty and smart in the same sort of way that Sammy is, and she reminds me of Ryan Gosling's daughter in the movie The Nice Guys. Like that. That is the sort of dynamic that she has with her dad, with Patch. And I also think that though I love those, I feel like everybody in the book had that same vibe. The grandma had that quick wit. Saint had that quick wit. They all talk to each other that way. And I think that's just the author's voice. And it was at times funny, like laugh out loud funny to hear them talk to each other like that, but also a little bit weird that all of them talk the same. Maybe that's the reason why they like got along, because they had similar taste in humor, but also you would think that their talking would be a little bit more varied for the different characters. But like you could put a line, I could read a line to you and it could have come from any of them. Sammy, Saint, Patch, or Charlotte, or even Norma the grandma. The line could have come from any of them. But it was very funny, and I did enjoy that. So it's like a plus or minus right there for me. Chief Nix, who was the cop at the time, turns out that he was in a relationship with Toombs, and that was a whole thing that I also didn't talk about, but Toombs was found to have a blood of a missing girl at his house, and it turns out he was a doctor and he was trying to perform an abortion for her because she was being assaulted by her father, who was also a police, and she ended up dying. And they linked him to the incident with Patch, and he like said, yes, I did it. And he wanted Patch to be able to move on and think that Grace was gone so that he could live his life, but Patch didn't, obviously. And then later on, death row, and he's about to get executed, he finally comes clean about a lot of it, and we find out that he was in a romantic relationship with the chief, and that he used to do these abortions, and that was a whole nother thing that was in there. There were other layers in the plot, but I just sort of kept to the things that like spoke to me for the most part. I have been thinking about this book all night. I talked about it yesterday. Kept me up at work thinking about it. And I'm just going to insert this little video in there somewhere because there are things that I didn't mention that I think I should have. One is the Playboy callback. I love a good callback. And that Playboy callback from him having it in his house from when he was little and then it being at the very end, like, yes, well done. Also, I said that I didn't understand the point of him robbing the banks. And he's got the sort of personality that I shouldn't be surprised that that's what he would do for money.
But I didn't mention that he gave most of that money away to help with organizations and families for the missing girls. And that's really important. And I didn't want to leave without addressing that. And lastly, I talked about that moment with the purple honey at the beginning and at the end, but I didn't mention that they had their first kiss after that purple honey moment, just to cement the fact that that was just like, in my opinion, like where their relationship really like solidified, and how it was so poetic that that's at the end where they were able to come back together after the whole Grace thing was over. So yeah, so after thinking about this nonstop, I had to come back and say those things.
I think I love this book. I think I do. I think despite the plot and all of the other things that I was saying about the dragging and the pacing, I am so moved by it, and I am so saddened and haunted by it that if a book gives you those emotions, then it's got to be a book that you liked, right? I don't like feeling like this. I don't like that after this video, I'm probably just going to lay back down and continue to stare at the ceiling. I don't like that I'm going to be useless. So I do not enjoy that. But the fact that this invoked that much emotion out of me, I think is probably what the author would consider a success. All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker. I recommend it. I think it's starting to get cold outside. We're snuggling inside with our blankets. I think this is a dark, emotional type book that is good for the season. That's all I got. So please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. And I will see you next time, either here on the couch or at my desk, depending on what I plan to talk about.